Hey everyone, my name is Gordon, intern at the DSC at UCI, and today we are interviewing Rosetta Henderson. Rosetta is the Senior Disability Specialist at the DSC at UCI. Thanks for coming to interview with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So where did you grow up?
So I'm originally from the Bay Area. I'm from NorCal. So I grew up in Richmond, California. So any Bay Area folks, you probably know where that is.
Yeah. And where did you go to school and what was your major?
I went to City College of San Francisco, got my associate's degree. Then I transferred to Chapman, which is right here in Orange County, a small private school. And I majored in psychology, and I got my master's from Cal State Long Beach in counseling.
Okay. And what was your job title or at UCI and how long have you been working at UCI?
My job title here is a senior disability specialist. I've been at UCI, when you sent me the question, I was like, oh, I haven't been at UCI for that long. And then I looked back at my start date and it was January of 2014. So I initially started in what is now called the Center for Student Wellness and Health.
Okay.
Promotion. And now I've been at DSC since July of 2015. So starting on my year, I guess, coming up.
Yeah. And what's your job entail?
It can be different from day to day, but essentially what we do is I meet with students right now online and over the phone, but meet with students to talk about the barriers that they feel that they may face or are facing on campus as a student, look over documentation. Sometimes students don't have documentation, and that's all right. So we'll work with them to refer them out to get documentation, whether that's the counseling center or if they need to go to a doctor or connect with a social worker or whatever we need to do. Also working with different departments, whether that's, again, referring students or working with them, attending like their staff meeting, our staff training that they may have to share because they want to learn more about DSC and how can we become better partners and how can they refer students to us. And advocating, also working with like departments for orientations, for working with faculty members to figure out what are some of those unique accommodations that, that we may need to discuss when it comes to their different classes or how their exams are laid out and whatnot.
Okay. And what made you want to work in the disability field?
Man, this is a question where I can't necessarily pinpoint like one time in my life or one experience like as an intern or working. I think it just kind of evolved to it. I always knew I wanted to like help people, right? That's a very broad like answer, right? And I didn't really know exactly how I wanted to help people. I wasn't sure if that was, some of those jobs that we know that are like in the helping field as far as being a doctor, a lawyer, an attorney, or same thing, right? Being a social worker, but I wasn't sure being a teacher. I just, wasn't really sure. My mom, she was a nurse. And that's one thing I knew I didn't want to do, but more power to the nurses. I respect all the nurses, but that was just like a field. I was like, I want to help, but I don't think I want to help in that way. And then, I think I just kind of started to look at what are some other things that I can do. So I kind of started working. I think my first job, I was 14. I was working just like a summer camp, like a sports summer camp with youth in my hometown in Richmond. And then I kind of transitioned into working in group homes for youth. So those group homes are youth that maybe have been in the foster care system. So the goal is to hopefully, obviously they have a place to live, but it's a supportive environment. I'm trying to get them to a foster family or get them adopted, or at least get them back to their family if their family are able to support them. So that was kind of like, I enjoyed that work, but it was very difficult because some of the stories that you like heard or that you read, like you're in meetings and you're hearing like very traumatic events that these children have gone through. The youngest one I think I worked with was probably like 5 or 6 years old. And it's, you just hear these and after a while, it's like, you know what, I want to help, but I don't think I can do this day in and day out for like a long run. So I end up working, what else did I do after that? I ended up working kind of in the non-public school area. So working with students, again, like young kids and teenagers, and working with students that may have been on the spectrum or other related disorders. So then I kind of think I've kind of found like mentioned like, oh yeah, I think this is kind of like the area I want to go in, but I, again, wasn't sure exactly where. So I coached high school basketball for a little while too, for a couple years, but I always kind of like came back to like this area. So in grad school, I did different things too, like athletics, career services, transfer center. And I was at Cal State Long Beach and their DSS. And I think that's kind of probably was probably more of like, this is, I think, what I want to do, support students on the college level. So that's kind of, I guess, my roundabout answer, kind of like that path. It wasn't like just one moment, I think, in life that said I want to do this, but it was, I think this is like the area where I'm supporting a population that I feel I'm passionate about. And it's the area where it's kind of, is where I landed, but I enjoy it. So that's kind of how I ended up in this field. Sorry, that was a long answer. So
yeah, no, it's interesting. And how were you involved with the DSC's response to the coronavirus?
So when COVID-19 hit, or when we kind of like heard about it, I wasn't like directly in the planning process of how things were go online and things like that. But being one of the counselors, it was one of the things kind of try reassuring students that they would still get their accommodations. And some of their accommodations may look a little different, as we are also trying to figure out how are some of these accommodations going to look, you know, from working at home, right? From working online on your devices. But it was more, you know, there was more like upper leadership and things like that, that created like a task force and figured out how things were going to be done. And, you know, and that task force is throughout the summer to figure out various things of, you know, do we come back? How do we come back? How do we work on, you know, trying to make sure students and faculty and staff are, you know, are healthy in the most healthy way possible. So it was more on me, I think, just reassuring students that we're still available. Got a lot of different phone calls and emails from students. Even like some departments reached out and asking like, how is DSC going to still support students in this way? And it was just reassuring that we were still available. So I guess more like a reassurance role for me.
Yeah, and on that note, how have you been involved with planning for SPOP and student orientation?
So previously, you know, SPOP, you know, we were in person. I was a lot involved with like, you know, DSC doing the presentations and tabling for like the resource fair. And now, you know, being online, it was more with how can we do that online and create videos. So the video piece and the PowerPoint piece I didn't create, but someone else in the office created it. And then now just kind of just working with them to make sure that students have they're like enrolled in the early spot dates, if we can get them there. Also just working sure to make sure the dates that we have, something called the coffee talk, will be happening. Someone else in the office is actually working on that as well. I'm part of that team, obviously working on that. But, you know, just still want to make sure we are visible, even though we are in the remote setting. But want to make sure students still know as they're coming in, like any other students have in the past, that DSC is a resource. And, you know, that we're a resource that they can still use in this setting, in this environment.
Yeah.
Also, sorry. So, and then also with graduate schools too, you know, all the programs, so each counselor at DSC were assigned to different schools, but the programs too, with the grad programs and doctoral programs, they do reach out to us and ask us to be in their orientations also. So I've already done some orientations in this remote setting via Zoom, right? But at least like those students that are incoming that would normally see me in person are now seeing at least they just don't have a name in a department. Now they have a face and a voice to that name and to our office, so they can still contact us. So those are some things where it's not just incoming freshmen, but we also do a lot of orientations for graduate programs and doctoral programs.
Yeah. What kinds of things do you like to do in your free time?
You know, I'm kind of like, a homebody sometimes, but I know, like, especially since being here at home with COVID, I've been doing like a lot more reading because I used to actually read for fun. So a lot more reading, doing more cooking, obviously. Also, I picked up a camera, so started to, just go out and take pictures, something that I always, wanted to do. And I started to do that a few months back also. So, and coffee, I like coffee. So trying different coffees, especially now since you can't necessarily go into the coffee cafes and whatnot as much, or you want to like minimize your exposure of doing that. I mean, I've just been ordering different types of coffee and making my coffee. So different brands for sure I've been trying. So I know a lot of things with food, I guess, right? I better get out there and work out or something, but but yeah, so I do a lot of that kind of stuff right now.
Yeah. And what's one thing you want everyone to know about people with disabilities?
I just want people to know, treat that person like any other person, right? That is part of who they are. That is their identity. And don't feel no pity because they have a disability. Know that, they're going to get, you and that person get to the same point. Like if you both are trying to get to point Z, that person's going to get there also. They may just do it a little bit differently. And just understand that, it doesn't has anything to do with intelligence or anything like that. Person with a disability, you may be that one person, you may know someone in your family or a good friend. And, just really treat people like you would treat anyone else.
Yeah, that's good advice. Thanks for coming to interview with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the DSC YouTube channel, and I'll see you guys next time.